Amy Baxter, editor of Retail Leader, and welcome to Trend Talk. Every week on Trend Talk, we identify a retail trend and give it a deep dive with an industry insider. With me today is Seth Mendelson, editor-in-chief of Drugstore News, which is a sister publication to Retail Leader. This week, we're talking about inflation. There's been a lot of recent economic data indicating that inflation is on the rise, and we're going to discuss how it's impacting retailers, and specifically within the drugstore sector and mass retail sector. Inflation coupled with a tight labor market is making the return to normal a lot more interesting and challenging. So I'm really glad to have Seth here to talk about this emerging trend and get a better understanding of what it means for retailers right now. So Seth, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. Could you introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi, Amy. Thanks for having me. Good morning. My name is Seth Mendelson. I'm the editor-in-chief of Drugstore News. I've been covering the mass retail category for way too long, almost 35 years, and I've seen a lot happen in the category during these times. Probably the most interesting time has been the last year and a half. And I agree with you, inflation is definitely a major player right now with consumers and with retailers. And it's causing a lot of concern, a lot of interest in retail because of what's happening right now.
Yeah, definitely. And so we're talking about this because it's just an emerging trend right now. You know, the latest figures from April put the consumer price index at 4.2%, which is a huge increase over what we've seen in the last couple of years. So I'm not going to ask you for a whole explanation of inflation, but I'm wondering if you could give us an overview of what inflation actually does to the retail industry.
Well, actually, the official number is 4.2%, but what I'm hearing from retailers and consumer groups is that for several key products, key categories, inflation is much, much higher. And consumers are really paying a price to get products that they paid much less for a year and a half ago. A lot of this is due because of the pandemic and the fact that a lot of factories did not produce as much product as they did in the past. They had less people working, they had less demand, and they cut back. And right now the consumer is again paying the price for it. How this is impacting retail is the fact that prices are going up. As prices are going up, there's consumers saying they can't afford as much as they used to be able to afford. And so now they're shopping a little bit differently, a little bit more intelligently too in many cases. You see consumers definitely looking for product that is a substitute product. It might be a store brand or private label product. It might be a cheaper alternative to what they usually buy. But you do see a lot of consumers playing the games they must play to make sure they can get the food they need for their family. On the other hand, I have to add, there's a lot of money out there. The government's initiatives over the past year and a half have definitely thrown a lot of money into the market. And that is also playing a role in inflationary price increases. So right now, there's a ton of money out in the marketplace and people are spending. These are good times for retail in terms of sales.
Right.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, so we've got these new signs of inflation happening at the same time that this pent-up demand for shopping in-store is really gearing up. So we saw the retail sales were hugely elevated for March, and they sort of stayed elevated in April compared to last year. But now that there's inflation, it's all over the headlines. We're talking about it now. Do you think that this conversation of inflation will actually scare shoppers a little bit and have them pull back?
No, I don't see that. I think people are out there spending money. As I said, there's a lot of money in the marketplace from the government. People are working. People are going back to work. It's pretty optimistic out there. As long as the pandemic does continue to subside, I think we're going to see at least 6 months of good retail sales through the end of the year. So that's 7 months. I would imagine this is going to be a pretty good Christmas season in October, November, and December. For now, consumers are spending, and they're spending everywhere. They're spending in mass retail and food stores and drugstores. They're spending at department stores. They're spending online. They're spending in store as they go back to stores. People want to go out and about. I think the cosmetics category is a great example of the consumer saying, female consumers saying, boy, I haven't bought lipstick in a year and a half. And now as the masks come off, they want to put lipstick on. And you see this with men too, and men's care. It's not just women. Men are spending more money on themselves because they're going back to the office slowly but surely. And as that happens, we're going to see more people spending. Definitely a change in attitude, though. I don't think we're going to see people wearing suits to work for the near future. People are not going to be getting as dressed up. So you're going to see a different trend, which may be good for companies like The Gap and Banana Republic and stuff like that. So that's where we stand with that.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that about the lipstick, because the last time I was in Target, what I've noticed is the products have changed a little bit in the last year since the last time I went into a Target, really, where there's a lot more packaging that's made out of paper instead of plastic. Some toothbrushes are made out of aluminum so they're reusable. And I think that those cost more anyway. So as prices are increasing, consumers actually want to maybe pay a premium for these other kinds of sustainable packages too at the same time. So I think there's a lot of things driving prices up too.
Well, the commodity costs are going. Oil is high. Oil's at $65 a barrel. People are paying $3 to $4 a gallon for gas, and that's high. That's 50%, 70% higher than we were paying a year and a half ago or a year ago. And it's high. And lumber prices are high, though they're coming down. Everything is high right now. I expect that as the consumer slows down at some point, that inflation will slow also. At least I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
Long-term inflation is not good for anybody.
Right. There's a lot of talk that a lot of these things happening right now are short-term reactions to this huge, quick return to everything. But
yeah, that's what we all say. Yes.
Yeah, hopefully. But do you think retailers should be afraid of some of this emerging data? You know, the April jobs numbers too show that there's a lot of open jobs still. So it's a tight labor market as things are getting more expensive. How are you seeing retailers respond? Have you heard anything in the latest earnings calls from the first quarter? How are executives thinking about this?
I think that's the bigger concern is the job market, the tight job market, and finding people to work retail. Retail has historically, paid minimum wage or near minimum wage and gotten people to work because who need a job. Now with again all the stimulus in the marketplace, a lot of people are not looking for work, and I think that is affecting mass retail, getting enough people to work. And honestly, it's all the way up and down the employment totem pole. I mean, retailers are having trouble getting pharmacists at the top. They can't afford to pay more for pharmacists, and then at the bottom, cashiers and baggers or whatever it might be, stock people. They're having trouble filling those roles. And I think that's the bigger concern for retail. I think it's the bigger concern for the economy in general. The $15 minimum wage, not something I'm a big fan of, because that just leads to more inflation. And, it makes it tough for the retailer to do business.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I want to ask you lastly, if you just have any future predictions for the impact of inflation and maybe what we should be looking out for of how it's going to impact retail.
Well, I wish I had a crystal ball. I'd be buying stuff in the stock market if I did. I think inflation is here for the medium term. It's more than a short-term phenomenon. I hope it's not here for the long term, because eventually it will hurt the economy badly. I think we can deal with it for about a year, and then if it 4 to 5% is not terrible, and hopefully prices will drop back down. As I said before, I'm more concerned about the workforce and getting enough people to work in the marketplace. I think that's a much bigger concern for retail. Overall, though, I think retail is in about the best spot it's been in a long time, probably a decade. We're coming out of this pandemic, and it seems the optimism is there. The consumer wants to spend. They want to go out and do things in general, not just with retail. Mm-hmm. And the more people do things, the more they need products at their favorite supermarket or drugstore or mass merchandiser. And that's good news.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. Exciting to see what everything is changing very quickly. So be interesting to see what the next month of data looks like. So Seth, thank you so much for those insights. We'll definitely be keeping an eye out for whatever data keeps coming out as these economic conditions continue to evolve, and we'll monitor the trends that are emerging. So that's going to do it for us this week on Trend Talk, and we'll see you back here next week with another retail trend.
Thank you.